Good afternoon. It's 5 minutes to 5 on Tuesday afternoon, and today I have got chapter 11 ready to recite. So I will get on and try not to sweat too much reading it because it's very hot. Okay. It's a little larger than I'd anticipated, said Elspeth as she struggled with the cage down the hallway. George and Olive followed closely behind with food and toys spilling from their arms, little mirrors, bells and ropes. Park him there. He'll be no trouble at all, assured George as he lifted the cream sheet to reveal Lancelot, a finely bred parrot, looking mildly bewildered at why 4 pairs of eyes were peeking into his home. It was an inconvenience Elspeth could have done without. She had only accepted on the grounds that it might be interesting for Violet to have a pet around. Elspeth was uncomfortable around animals. She didn't grow up with them, and so any childhood fears surrounding their presence was amplified in adulthood. Graham was also uneasy. A parrot, of all creatures, just when he was attempting to conceal a secret. He would have to be extra careful and not spill anything to the bird. He figured a worst-case scenario could be resolved by distracting it with seed. Surely that beak wasn't big enough to eat and imitate at the same time. Lancelot was as gallant as his name suggested, a monstrous size with curious charcoal eyes, feathers smooth as polished shells, and flashes of red, green, ochre and indigo splashed from his beak to his claws. George and Olive made one last fuss of the bird, handed over their flight details, and departed. They were heading for Oslo, where George was giving a speech at the School of Architecture and Design. Although his apathy meant he never made the big time, his unique vision meant he was somewhat of an icon among his peers. Plus, Olive had fallen in love with the tranquility of Frogner Park and Gustav Vigeland's mystifying sculptures. There was no greater satisfaction than sitting aside the monolith, watching the shadows sweep the stone and the mirrored granite as the fountains cut the close air with sparkling light. The afternoon rolled on like a steam train slurring into the platform, slow and exhausting, gasping for air. Elspeth pulled on her moss-green Hunter Wellingtons and slung a cherry cardigan over her shoulders. It was mid-afternoon, time to pick Violet up from school. The sun burned through the clouds like a giant magnifying glass, and as she walked through the high-grown fields, summer insects were fizzing bright with their iridescent wings splayed like collapsed bubbles drifting skyward. She hadn't long left when the shrill buzz of the telephone startled the parrot into a manic flutter and sent Graham rushing towards its receipt. He knew who was calling. He knew what they wanted. He knew the precise content of the conversation before he even lifted the receiver. He gripped the taut, sturdy handle, his wedding ring knocking against the plastic. Eric, just like clockwork. And then we have chapter 11. I think my novel is going quite well, but it's hard to judge from my own perspective because obviously I'm the only one writing it, so I don't really know like how it's coming across to other people. But I hope it's somewhat interesting, and I think it's kind of going forward now because obviously the characters are kind of coming to play. And it's developing more of like a general theme and story and everything, so I hope everyone